Hello and welcome to the AVRUM ROSENSWEIG Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks. My name is AVRUM ROSENSWEIG. You know, there are some people whose lives quietly change history. And then there are those whose personal courage helps transform an entire country. Today's guest is the remarkable, a very dear friend of mine, Harvey Brownstone. Welcome, Harvey.
Thank you so much, Avram, for having me back on your show.
Oh, it's an honor, my friend. It's an honor. Harvey is a trailblazing jurist, Canada's first openly gay judge, a best-selling author, a podcaster of what has become a global phenomenon, and a very fine and unique Jew and human being. For more than a quarter century on the bench, Justice Brownstone presided over some of the most challenging and emotionally charged cases in our justice system. Appointed in 1995 at a time when openly gay professionals still faced enormous barriers, he shattered a glass ceiling and became a symbol of courage, of dignity, of authenticity for countless Canadians. At only 38 years old, he was appointed to the Ontario Court of Justice, and Harvey was the first sitting judge in the world to write a national bestseller, Tug of War. Now in his powerful new memoir, Without Prejudice, My Life as a Gay Judge, Harvey takes readers behind the robe and into a deeply personal journey marked by rejection, by resilience, poverty, professional triumph, heartbreak, and ultimately redemption. His book chronicles his extraordinary path from a bullied young man, social outcast, a young man rejected by his parents, to a pioneering lawyer, distinguished judge, a best-selling author, and a beloved television interviewer. And if that wasn't enough, Harvey's remarkable life story is now being adapted into a major motion picture, scheduled for release later this year, starring David Arquette and directed by Shane Stanley. In today's conversation, we'll explore the personal cost of Harvey's Jewishness and love for Israel, being a pioneer, the evolution of LGBTQ rights in Canada, the hidden realities of life on the bench, the strengths and shortcomings of our justice system, and what it takes to reinvent yourself after retirement into one of the most successful interview hosts on the internet. And by the way, some of Harvey's guests have included major stars such as Robert Wagner, Loretta Swit, Patrick Duffy, Joan Van Ark, Graham Russell, and all of them have said Harvey's interviews are the highlights of their careers. In fact, Robert Wagner said, as a matter of fact, it's the very best. The magnificence of Harvey Brownstone does not end here. A tribute has been composed about him called I Am Yours. The music and words by Harriet Schock and performed by Gary Lynn Floyd. This story today about courage, a story about truth, a story about resilience in the face of rejection. And above all, it is a story about what becomes possible when a human being refuses to hide who they are. Ladies and gentlemen, my very dear friend, a superstar, Harvey Brownstone.
What an introduction. I don't know if I can live up to all of that, Avram. Thank you so much.
You already have, Harvey. You already have. I have to tell my listeners and viewers that when it comes to podcasting, an extraordinarily difficult career, that you truly are my mentor. And I say this not only because I've watched you in action. Your introductions are epic, absolutely epic. But it's because of the kind words that you have said to me since you and I met a couple of years back. And I hold that dearly in my heart, partially because I'm insecure as the next creative person, and because I view you as really at the top of the podcast game. And to hear you be so complimentary of my work, it's just an absolute pleasure and honor to hear such things. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it's very well deserved. I think that you have developed a reputation for being the voice and the conscience and the soul of the Jewish community in the broadcasting world, the Jewish community in Israel and in the diaspora. And I really support what you do, how you do it. I love your guests. I think you're a fantastic interviewer. I chose to focus on celebrities as guests. You've also had a few on your show too.
Yes.
But what you're doing, especially at this time when there's so much misunderstanding about Israel and about the Jewish population, you're making a real difference as an ambassador. That's why I support you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me ask then, why is it that you chose celebrities?
Sorry, you cut out.
Yeah, I want to ask, why is it that you chose celebrities to interview?
Because I was always a lover of pop culture. In my mind, when I was growing up, I just wanted to be part of that Hollywood world because it seemed so glamorous and it was such a wonderful escape from the miserable childhood I was having. So when I finally decided to be an interviewer after having watched all those talk shows all my life, it was celebrities that I was drawn to because I'm starstruck. I'm a fan.
Yes. You know, what I found fascinating was when you were applying to become a judge, I think one of the questions was, what 3 books are you reading? And you were reading biographies of the stars.
I was, because I wanted to figure out how they became successful. I was very driven, and my book explains why I was so driven and so ambitious, but I thought if I could read biographies of autobiographies by famous people, especially stars, that I would pick up some tips on how did they get there, where did they start, and how did they get where they got to. It still really fascinates me.
Is there one in particular that fascinates you more than others?
Well, every single autobiography, memoir, has been really an educational experience. I loved Robert Wagner's book,
Yes.
Pieces of My Heart, but all of them, every single one of them, have taught me something. Many of them, of course, passed away before I got to interview them. You know, Lauren Bacall wrote a great book, and so did Shelley Winters and Errol Flynn. And, you know, every star that's written a memoir, I think, has some life lessons to teach.
Yes. When Loretta Swit died, were you sad?
Oh, yes. She had become a very good friend. Loretta and I spoke frequently. That's the greatest byproduct of being a celebrity interviewer is, I would say, well, we've interviewed close to 600 people now in the last 5.5 years. I've become friends with dozens of them.
Yeah.
And Loretta was a wonderful human being. Her love of animals really, really touched me. She did a lot behind the scenes as an advocate for animal rights. She was just the most humble. I've learned that the bigger the star, the more humble and nicer they are.
Well, why do you think that is?
I think because they're confident. They know that they've made it. They don't have to prove anything. They don't have to treat other people badly to make themselves feel validated. And that's sometimes what happens with famous people. Their insecurities manifest themselves into bad behavior. But if you've made it and you know you're talented, you can be nice to people because you don't have the insecurities anymore. And if you do, you've learned how to handle them.
Do you have any of those insecurities, or
Of course.
are you nice to everybody now?
Well, I've always tried to be nice, but the kind of insecurities I was referring to that major legendary superstars have are different kinds of insecurities than you and I have. They have to worry about staying on top. They have to worry about public image. They have to worry about getting older and whether there's going to be any work for them. They have to worry about the competition. You know, you and I have insecurities, but they're not at that level.
Yeah. How did those play out? Because I've seen some of your interviews with individuals, actors, actresses, who some people would consider has-beens, who've been there, they've done it, they're not being looked at anymore. Does that break your heart to interview these people?
Not at all. No, because the interest that the audiences have in those people tells me that they may be has-beens in terms of what's commercially marketable right now in the
Yeah.
industry. But with the fans, I am always amazed when I get a former child star who hasn't really done much since the 70s and their interviews go viral. So no, it never breaks my heart. They're wonderful people to interview, the older stars. And I love interviewing the older stars because they have real life stories to tell. They really appreciate the research I did because they don't get as many interviews as the really hot new stars. And so many of them have become good friends. I mean, Tony Orlando, we talk every week.
Yes.
Robert Wagner, we talk at least twice a month. And they have the time because they're not working.
Do you pinch yourself when you're on the phone with Robert Wagner?
Absolutely. I
do?
absolutely do. I still can't believe that RJ is such a good friend. And what a friend. I mean, he was the first major legend we got on the show, and he got me so many other stars. I pinch myself every time he says, Harvey, I love you. Keep going. I can't wait to see you. Of course I do.
Before we dive into your book, which, by the way, is magnificent, I enjoyed reading it from cover to cover. You're a fine, fine writer. You really are a fine writer. And I believe, how long did the book take you to write? Not very long.
No, it took me 3 weeks, believe it or not.
Oh.
And I that was deliberate. I don't understand how these people who write memoirs say, oh, it took years and years and years. I didn't want to live back in those days that long. So I put my brain into a zone. I transported myself back to all the way to the beginning, and I relived it. It was almost like taking dictation. It just came out of me. The conversations that I had not thought about in years just came back. But I wanted it over with. I wanted to get it out of me and then get back to the present. So I forced myself to write 1 chapter a day for 3 weeks. And then, of course, I edited, I refined it, I polished it. But the main thing was to get it out.
What was that like for you viscerally, emotionally, to go back to those days, let's say when you were bullied? What were you feeling inside?
Well, if you're really in that zone, you're reliving it, you feel it. And that's the thing about writing a memoir. I realized early on that if I were just to say, my parents kicked me out when I told them I was gay, and I spent 5 years on welfare and I had a really hard time getting through school, that's not a book. You have to take the reader back there with you. They have to experience it. What exactly did you say? Where did you say it? What was their reaction? How did they look? What did they say back to me? That's when I realized, okay, in order to write this book, you got to relive it. And that was, of course, painful, a lot of it. But oddly enough, the real healing catharsis came when I did the audiobook. I wasn't expecting that. In fact, I had to audition to do my own audiobook. The people at Simon & Schuster had to approve me. So I read this chapter, and then it got sent to New York. And then they decided that I was suitable to tell my own story. But when I was doing it, it took 4.5 days. It's 9.5 hours, that book. That's when I really felt healed, because saying it out loud was a real cleansing, cathartic, redemptive experience.
I want to read your intro of the book to our listeners and viewers, because you really pack it in, and I think it qualifies what the essence of this beautiful book is. You write, this book is dedicated to the blessed memory of my beloved parents, Odette and Sam Brownstone, who you speak beautifully about, not entirely, but often, who raised me with love and gave me the greatest gift parents can give a child, self-esteem. And to my partner and best friend, Steve Silver, whose unconditional love, support, and belief in me has given me wings to soar. And then you mention a few more names, which we will go through throughout the interview. And finally, to everyone along the way who told me I would never make anything in life anything of myself in life. Sorry. Thank you for teaching me that success is the best revenge. Within that introduction, I find almost like a juxtaposition. On one hand, you're extraordinarily thankful to your parents for the love that they gave you, although through the book, the reader's going to find out it was not all velvet. And then you jump forward, and with that chutzpah that you have, that audacity, which you really, really use well, you say, you know what, to all you schmucks out there who never thought I'd make it because I'm gay or because I didn't have what it took, you know what? Thank you so much, because you're the ones who helped me with my success. Is that how you see the book? Is that how you see your life? Almost that juxtaposition?
Yes, I do. And I think that the reason I feel that success is the best revenge, and that is a major theme of the book, is because when you're bullied, when you're rejected, when you're discriminated against, which happened to me a lot, I always thought I'd get even with them. I'd prove to them that I am somebody, that I'm going to be somebody, that I'm going to achieve. Because I think I thought very naively that one day these people who treated me badly would come to me and say, I was wrong. You really are worth something. You really are competent and you're capable. Avram, that's never going to happen. And I realized over and over again, I went to my high school reunion. I was confronted by a couple of those bullies that beat me up every day. I had lawyers that told me I was never, ever going to be a judge. And there they are at my swearing in. You're never going to get the satisfaction of people coming to you and saying, I was wrong and I'm sorry. And so I realized the real revenge isn't in hoping that they're going to come to you and give you the satisfaction of telling you how wrong they were. No, the real revenge is knowing that you had success. That's the best revenge, that you know that you made it. Don't wait for other people to validate you. It's more important that you know that you made it. And that's why I really do believe everybody who mistreated me, the best revenge I got at them is that I made it.
You talk about the self-esteem that your parents gave you, and I want to know if that comment is a direct one. In other words, Mommy, Daddy, thank you so much for building up my confidence. Because when I read the book, your mother, boy, oh boy, she was quite the woman, quite the person. She was out there. She was audacious. She was loud. She said bizarre things to people. Someone complimented her on a gorgeous dress she was wearing. A beautiful dress she was wearing. She goes, well, of course it is. Why would I be wearing it? Why wouldn't I be wearing it otherwise? Like these comments that she would make. So did they indeed give you that self-esteem, or was it an indirect sort of thing that you learned how to be because you didn't want to be like your mom?
Yes, they did. Everything changed, of course, when I told them I was gay and I got kicked out and rejected. But prior to that incident when I was 19, they really did give me self-esteem. They made me believe that I was smart, that I could be anything, that I could accomplish anything. They really did. My parents gave me two big gifts: self-esteem, which really came in handy later on, and rejection. I didn't put that in the introduction because I didn't want to give away the story in the very first page, in the dedication. But the truth is, they gave me two gifts. They gave me self-esteem as I was growing up, which equipped me to handle the rejection and all the homophobia that I had to deal with. But they also gave me rejection. I don't recommend it as a parent to do that to your kids. But the truth is, it made me an overachiever. It made me extremely ambitious and gave me drive. It made me a fiercely hardworking person. That would never have happened if they hadn't rejected me. I would have ended up being another privileged middle-class kid who never had to really fight for anything. But everything changed when they rejected me. Then I had to really focus in on proving to them that I was worth their love and that they didn't have to be ashamed of me. So that was a big gift too, rejection.
My dad rejected me, and in some ways, it made me immobile for the many years that he did until his death when he was 61 years old. I felt very relieved that he was gone. But yet, your parents, they came back to you. They were at your graduation. And to me, that really was a redemption. I thought that was an incredible thing. And you forgave them.
Well, of course, you forgive for yourself so that you can move on. You don't forgive for the person who has offended you. You forgive for yourself. But I will tell you, I wish I had known you back then when you were rejected, because I have now learned in the couple of weeks since this book has been out, I have received hundreds of messages from people who were also rejected or not accepted by their parents, not because they were gay, but because of their choice of career, their choice of partner, their choice of lifestyle. There are many reasons why parents make kids feel like they're not good enough and that they're a disappointment.
Yeah.
And I wrote the book, and this is why I say I wish I'd known you, because I believe the way to handle parental rejection, which is so traumatizing, is to channel all of that hurt and anger and betrayal and heartbreak into ambition, into a fierce determination to succeed, to prove them wrong. So you were paralyzed by it. I saw many, many young people when I came out in the 70s, almost every gay person I knew back then who had told their parents got thrown out or rejected, certainly disapproved of. I don't know too many people whose parents in the 70s said, "Oh, you're gay. Isn't that lovely? Let's throw a party. Let's publish an announcement in the paper." No, everybody felt like they were a big disappointment. And some of those people I watched, they turned it into self-loathing. Some of them self-medicated with alcohol and drugs. Several committed suicide. And I wrote in the book that I contemplated it myself. But I was determined I wasn't going to be one of those people. I was going to prove my parents wrong.
Yeah, that's Hurricane Harvey, isn't it, in you? You said you went through this epiphany. You came to a moment, and you write about it in the book very clearly. You said, "I'm going to achieve." And in fact, you referred to yourself at some point as an overachiever. And I was thinking about your mom, who came from France, single mom with a 3-year-old kid, brand new country, did not speak the language. And she opened up the store after seeing that there was a lack of beautiful clothing in Hamilton, where you moved to. And she was successful at it. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's where Harvey gets it from, right?
I certainly inherited my ambition, my drive,
Yeah.
my extroverted personality, my lack of filter, because I am unfiltered many times,
You are.
from her. I all my life, I mean, she could be very tough. We went to Marineland once. She took one look at the sharks and said, "Do they come with fries?" I mean, she was tough, and I didn't want to be that. But I have to admit that I did inherit a lot of those qualities from her. But I must say that I wasn't ambitious. I never thought as a teenager, "Oh, I really want to be somebody. I'd like to achieve something. I'd like to be well known." Never. It really was the rejection that pushed me, that one day they were going to be proud of me and not be so ashamed of me. And that really is because of the rejection. I'm happy that it happened. I'm grateful that it happened. And I guess that's another reason I was able to forgive, because I benefited. My mother gave me a story that is powerful enough to end up in a book and in a Hollywood movie. And she gave me all the tools I needed to handle all of the obstacles that were coming my way as a lawyer and as a judge.
Your father, Sam, rest in peace, was an incredibly handsome man. He was a big mucker, as we called him, at the JCC in Hamilton. He was a kind human being. He was very helpful to many. There was such a softness between you and Sam, between you and your dad. And when he did not stick up for you after your mother rejected you, and you challenged him on that, you said, "Dad, like, where were you?" I really felt for him. I really did.
I think that's so lovely of you to say, because the reaction everybody else seems to have is, what a wet noodle, what a schmata. Why didn't he speak up?
Yeah.
And you're smart enough and astute enough to understand that he couldn't. He couldn't. He was married to a steamroller, and she was a bully. She could be a bully. And if you find yourself in a marriage with a spouse who is so completely overpowering and throws tantrums if they don't get their own way and screams at decibels that would break windows, you either have to go along with it to just keep the peace or get out. And he loved her. He wasn't going to get out. So he didn't stand up for me, at least in front of me. Maybe he did try to talk to her during those 5 years that we didn't have any contact. I know she wasn't happy, and she must have been a handful to deal with. It's not like she was happy to not have her son in her life. But in front of me, he did not stand up for me. But that's because he just couldn't. Nothing he said was going to make any difference. And so I understood. I really understood.
Throughout the book, I found you to be fearless in nature. Some of the things, like your mother, that you would say to authority were flabbergasting. I couldn't believe some of the things you would say. As an example, we talked about, there was a committee choosing you or not as a judge, and one woman questioning your bilingualism. She said, well, say something in French. So you basically said in French, fuck you, which she didn't get. But my question is...
Well, you know why I did that?
No, tell me why you did that. Why did you do that?
Because she said, with a name like Harvey, it says here on your application that you're bilingual, but with a name like Harvey Brownstone, I find that hard to believe.
It should
and
be
I thought to myself, you bitch, you think I'm lying? You really think I would apply to be a judge and lie that I can speak French? What do you mean you find it hard to believe?
Yeah.
So I explained, well, the Brownstone comes from my dad. He's an Anglophone from Winnipeg, but I am bilingual because my mother was from France and she raised me speaking French. And I thought that was the end of it. But then when she said, all right, then go ahead, say something in French. And she gave me that look, and she looked at the other committee members like, now I got him.
Got him.
So I thought, okay, allez-vous faire foutre, madame? Oh, what a lovely accent you have. Well, what I told her was to go fuck herself. And after I said it, there was a member of the committee that looked at me and winked. And I thought, uh-oh, there's a person at this table that speaks French. She knows what I just said, but she winked at me.
Yeah. And said to you later, that woman tortures many of the applicants. I'm so happy you're the one who stood up to her.
Well, because she didn't let go after the French thing. She said, well, there's 500 people that have applied for this job. What makes you think you're more qualified than them? And I thought, well, what a stupid question. I don't have the applications of those 500 people. So I can't tell you why I'm more qualified than them. That's your job. You're on the committee. It's a ridiculous question.
But your answer was great. Your answer was because I'm going to get the job.
I said the difference between me and those other 499 people is that I'm going to get the job and they're not.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as I said it, I realized I'd really shot my mouth off, but I didn't think I was going to get the job anyway. I was pretty sure. I mean, this woman clearly didn't like me, and I did something I should never have done. These words came out of my mouth before I could stop myself. Believe me, the moment I said, well, I'm going to get the job and they're not, and everybody's face went white and everybody's jaw was on the floor. And I thought, oh my God. And then the chair of the committee said, all right, I think that just about wraps things up. Thank you so much for coming in. And I thought, well, I just blew it. Harvey, your big mouth was going to get you one day, and you finally did it. And now, and I kicked myself and I tortured myself for 2 weeks. I didn't sleep over it. I was so upset. And then I got that phone call from the Attorney General telling me I got the job. So at my swearing in, the chair of the committee happened to be at the swearing in, and I couldn't resist. I went up to him and I said, I can't believe you put my name to the Attorney General after what I said to that woman. And he said, what you didn't realize is that we all hated her. She
Yeah.
did that to everybody. She tortured everybody. And you were the only candidate that ever stood up to her. So just to bug her, we put your name on the list to go to the attorney general and she couldn't do anything about it. She was outvoted.
That's great. I just want to take a step back. My question to you was, are you afraid of anything or anybody?
Not now. I certainly was. I mean, listen, I think you know this. You can be very confident outwardly and have all kinds of insecurities. And I mean, listen, I have butterflies before every interview I do. I'm totally starstruck by every star. And when I was a lawyer, I was petrified all the time because judges didn't always treat me very well. And as a judge, it wasn't easy. I was young. I was openly gay. I worked at a court with a bunch of 70-plus-year-olds who were members of the old boys club. Yeah, I was scared of lots of things, but I knew that if I used my sense of humor and I had a quick wit, I knew how to win them over.
But there was one time where you didn't have a response for somebody.
When the attorney general called me and told me I got the job, I was speechless then.
Yeah, you were speechless.
Yeah.
I just have to say, in almost like as a synopsis to this part of the interview, is that your character as you were growing up was very, very powerful to read about. As I said, I've known you for a couple of years now, but in reading the book, I discovered things about you, your personality, your essence, that were really incredibly inspiring, and I was in awe of. I mean, as a young child, you describe how you had the shit kicked out of you by these awful bullies, right? You told your parents that didn't work out really well. You never mentioned it to them again, and you just kind of forged ahead and eventually became the president of the student body in school and had all this support from teachers who understood who you were, appreciated your character. One of those people was Mrs. Jarrett. And I must tell you something, your friendship with her and how much you revere her and honor her is so incredibly beautiful. I have a picture of her right here. Let's put that up. There we go. What a lovely, lovely woman. Can you tell her about her? What is it that you love so much about her?
Well, she noticed that I was being bullied. She was my grade 6 teacher. And, in those days, bullying was considered par for the course. It was a rite of passage. Nobody took it very seriously. But this particular teacher saw that I was getting really beaten up all the time. These other kids just pegged me for a queer or a sissy or a faggot. I didn't even know what it meant. I knew nothing about sex, or I'd never heard about homosexuality, but the other kids picked up on it because I guess I was a little flamboyant, effeminate. I wasn't good in sports. And Mrs. Jarrett saw that this was happening to me, and she found ways to protect me from the bullies. She'd give me shit in school for something I didn't do and give me a detention to keep me in the class late so that I could get out of school after all the bullies had gone home. Or maybe 5 minutes before the end of the day, she would say, Harvey, I have a letter that needs mailing. Go now and mail my letter. So she got me out of the building before the bullies got out. She really was a guardian angel. And then at the end of grade 6, I remember saying to her, oh, Mrs. Jarrett, I don't know what I'm going to do. You won't be my homeroom teacher anymore. And she flashed this big smile and said, Harvey, I've been transferred to grade 7. I will be your teacher next year too. Yes. Well, can you imagine? Can you imagine that she got herself put to grade 7 so that, first of all, I had a wonderful summer because I wasn't dreading September coming and having to go back to school because I knew she'd be there, and that she protected me another full year. And then it was her idea that I run for student council, which I thought was crazy because I must be one of the most disliked kids in the school. And she said, no, you're not, Harvey. Those other kids don't like the bullies either. They know how smart you are. They can tell.
Yeah.
They like you, and you should run for student council. President. And I did, and I won. I mean, it was unbelievable. So, and in the book, which I won't give away here, we discover how I won. But
Yes.
I can tell you, Mrs. Jarrett had no children. Her husband died when leaving her a widow a long time ago. And I always kept in touch with her. I invited her to my graduations. She spoke at my swearing in when I became a judge. I've always been there for her, and she's always been there for me. And she's going to be 88 now. And she read the book as soon as it came out, and she was very thrilled to be immortalized. And she is portrayed beautifully in the movie, just beautifully.
Oh, I'm so excited. I had an Auntie Sylvia. Many of us did. Auntie Sylvia was like a swan. She was graceful. In fact, she painted a picture of a swan, which I have here on my wall. She was loving. She was sweet. She was caring. And Harvey, she adored me. She adored me. And why I'm telling you this is because my mother, God bless her soul, my mother had a problem with intimacy. She really wasn't the type of person that I could warm up to. If I was in pain, I couldn't put my head on my mother's shoulder. She would say, go away and come back when you're feeling better. And I love my mother, and I forgive her for all of that. And I do know that at my galas for Via Hafta, the organization I started, she would run around flamboyantly and say, that's my son up there. That's my son, But I was happy that I had sort of a surrogate mom. And I think in your case, you had Miss Jarrett. You had Rosalie Abella as someone who cared so deeply for you when you were, starting law school. How do you think you found these women, or they found you?
Well, that's what you call bashert. That's destiny. That's karma. And I really believe in that. I must say, first of all, that I'm sorry for what you went through with your mom and dad.
Thank you.
Because you are nothing like what you just described. So you clearly found the resources within you to be a loving, warm, supportive father and friend and public figure. So good on you.
Thank you.
Rosie Abella, I just got very, very lucky. I got a summer job at the family court in Toronto on Jarvis Street. She was a family court judge, and I was assigned to her as her clerk. And she took a liking to me, and she felt that I had aptitude in family law. And we used to discuss her cases, and she would say things like, how do you think I should decide this? What's your opinion of the evidence? Yeah. Well, I couldn't believe that she cared about my opinion.
Yes.
And as the summer wore on, she saw that she felt I was good at it. And then one day she said, you're like a human question mark. You never talk about your life, your family. I know nothing about you. Tell me something about Harvey Brownstone. So I told her very quickly, and my parents threw me out because I'm gay. Well, she was mortified. And I told her, well, my mom was a Holocaust survivor, and for her, this was a terrible thing. And Rosie went apoplectic. She said, now, wait a minute. You're pushing a lot of buttons here. My parents were Holocaust survivors, and they know better than anybody the meaning of life. And you don't throw your children in the garbage. You give me your mother's phone number. I'm calling her. Well, I thought I was going to die because I know my mother. And as I wrote in the book, the conversation didn't go well. And I said to Rosie, you don't know my mother. I don't think you should call her. You really don't know what you're getting into. She's a real piece of work. And Rosie said, well, you don't know my mother. Well, many years later, I did get to meet her mother. But after Rosie's conversation with my mother, which ended up with my mother hanging up on her, Rosie turned to me and said, you win. You win, Harvey. Yes. You got Mother of the Year. But then she said, you listen to me, and you listen good. You don't need her. You don't need anybody. You work hard, and you never stop believing yourself. You're in yourself. And I think not only will you be a good lawyer, I think you're going to be a judge one day. Well, I thought she was crazy. I thought, I don't even know if I'm ever going to get a job as a lawyer because my professors are telling me I never will because I'm openly gay and no law firm's going to hire me. And this woman's telling me I might be a judge one day. But it was such a nice thing to do. It was such a nice thing to say. And I was so grateful that somebody believed in me, somebody in that position of being a judge. Well, when I got appointed, she gave me the biggest "I told you so" in history.
Do you love these women?
Oh, I adore them. I mean, there's no words to describe. When Rosie, I remember thinking, this woman is a superstar. She was a provincial judge. She was in her 30s. I wasn't surprised when she went to the Court of Appeal. I wasn't surprised when they appointed her to the Supreme Court of Canada. This woman was a superstar from day one. She had an ability, an intellect that was second to none, and she had a personality, the common sense, a problem-solving technique of how to deal with the law that shaped me as a judge. I just adore her.
You started off in criminal law, and you did that for about 3 years until one day you saw that someone whom you had gotten out, who had molested somebody, went out within 10 hours, did the same. And you got really pissed off. And you told some of your colleagues, and they looked at you, they go, wait a second, you want them to do this so that we can represent them again and make more money. And that did not sit well with you. So you decided to go into family law. There's a huge schism between the two, right? Is there a part of you, a part of your essence, part of your soul, which is in fact criminal law, and then another side where you kind of lean this way like Charlie Brown did, and you become that family lawyer, that person who's trying to get two people to do the right thing for their children? Is that both sides of you?
Yes, and it's easy to explain. When I was growing up, Perry Mason was a big TV show.
Yeah, right.
If there were any lawyers on TV back when we were kids, they were criminal lawyers, like To Kill a Mockingbird. Gregory Peck was a criminal lawyer. All of those shows were about criminal law, and I wanted to be a successful courtroom lawyer. So I was drawn to criminal law for that, and I developed an aptitude for it. You see, the one advantage I had as a lawyer is that I had a personality. I understood that if you want to keep juries from falling asleep, and if you want judges to be motivated to care about your client and about the arguments you're making, you have to have some charisma. You've got to have some likability. You might have to have a little sense of humor. And all the lawyers in those days were just so boring. They were so monochromatic. They were just like pablum, no flavor, no texture. But I had some flair, and I was good at it. So I liked criminal law. I never lost a trial as a lawyer. But then when this client who had raped someone, and I got him off, and then that night he calls me from the police station that he's been arrested again for sexual assaulting somebody else. And I started thinking, but if I hadn't got him off, he wouldn't have done that. This is really partly my fault. I don't like it. But yes, you're right. The other criminal lawyers said to me, but don't you understand? You want them to get arrested. That's how you make a living, you schmuck. And that's when I realized, okay, I love the drama of the criminal courtroom. I have a flair for it. Juries like me, but I can't live with myself. I just can't live with myself if somebody that I promised the court that they would be rehabilitated and they would learn their lesson and they would never do it again. And then they do. So I switched to family law because Rosie had always told me, you should be in family law. You've got the right sensibilities for it. So I'm glad I did, because in criminal law, I was going nowhere. I couldn't do defense work anymore. I couldn't stomach it. I tried to become a crown attorney, a prosecutor, because if you love criminal law and you don't want to do defense work, you have to be a prosecutor. And they wouldn't hire me because I was gay. So I had no choice. I had to leave criminal law.
What was it about you being gay that they would not hire you?
I think that I did. I think I have the way I behave tells everybody I'm gay. I've never in my life had to tell anybody I'm gay. They just figured it out.
Yes.
And in those days, it was off-putting. People didn't like, I mean, not everybody, but certainly it was very hard in the legal profession to get a job if you presented as gay. People thought their clients wouldn't like me. In the case of prosecutors, they thought the police wouldn't like me.
Yes.
And that was wrong. I had been dealing with the police every day as a defense counsel. I examined them in court. I met with them to get disclosure about my cases. The police knew me. I had no problems with them at all because I knew how to make my personality non-threatening and likable. That's a job skill, likability. And I knew it, and I knew how to use it. But I couldn't get the job. I couldn't get jobs in Bay Street firms either because they thought I was too gay. I was too gay. How do you be too gay? Are you too heterosexual?
No. Did you, in all of this, did you ever turn on your gay self?
In what way?
Did you ever resent being gay?
No, I saw friends that I told you really became self-loathing, angry, bitter people because they really, really didn't want to be the kind of person that they had been raised to despise. What bothered me was other people's reaction to it. I had no issue with the fact that I was sexually attracted to men. It's all I ever knew.
Yeah.
I did regret that I couldn't have kids because back then it was unheard of. Gay people could not have kids, and they could not adopt kids either. And that's really been a source of sadness for me because I would have loved to be a parent. But otherwise, no, I like being gay. I've had really good partners. I've had, I remember one woman said to me, "Oh, Harvey, you're gay. What a waste." AVRUM, let me assure you, it was never wasted.
Good for you. Harvey, when you became a judge, I think in images. As when I was reading your book, I saw you sitting up there on the bench. And I saw your very first day up there. And I was wondering to myself, what is that man going through? But do you feel like a fraud? Do you feel like, damn it, I belong here? I'm 38. I worked for this. And you're looking down and people's lives are in your hands. What were you going through when you first got up there?
Well, I know what you mean by saying, did you feel like a fraud? Because I have known many people, especially in show business, who have imposter syndrome.
That's correct. Yes.
I didn't because I had been appearing in court for years in front of dozens of judges. And I knew I was at least as good, if not better than them. I knew it. I did not feel like a fraud. I knew I deserved that job. I had achieved a lot as a lawyer, both in criminal law and as a director of child support enforcement for the province of Ontario. I certainly didn't feel like a fraud, but I was struck by the awesome nature of the responsibility. When you put that robe on, you're no longer Harvey. You're Mr. Justice Brownstone, and you represent an institution which is at the cornerstone of our democracy. And you become something else. You become the voice of justice. And so I took that very, very seriously. And because I had a very unusual youth where, I lived 5 years on welfare, I had a lot of financial issues and stress over trying to get through school with no help from my parents, I related to the clientele better than most judges. I worked with a lot of very privileged judges who I don't think they would have known a poor person if they fell over one. But I knew what it was like to be poor. I knew what it was like to be on welfare. I knew what it was like to wish that who had contemplated suicide. And I knew what it was like to have to struggle just to survive. I think that made me a more empathetic judge, a more compassionate judge. I felt like I could talk to the people who came in front of me easier than some of my colleagues who were uncomfortable with actually dealing with the litigants. They like to talk to the lawyers, but not really to the litigants. I wanted to talk to the litigants. I wanted them to know that I cared about their lives, and I wanted them to feel free to talk to me and ask me any questions if they needed to. So I chose to do the job differently than other judges because I knew what my clients felt was lacking when I used to go to court with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's it like to have so much control over someone's destiny, over someone's future? What's that like emotionally?
Well, you're more focused on not the control, but on making the best decision.
Mhm.
And the only way judges can make good decisions is if they have the right evidence. And so you're always focused as a judge, especially in family court, where so many people represent themselves and don't bring proper evidence. You know, I've had entire custody cases where the child wasn't mentioned once. All I heard about was infidelity, financial trouble, bad cooking. The parents were at each other's throats, but never once did they tell me anything about the child. You can't make good decisions if you don't have good evidence in front of you. And the same in criminal court, the Crown has to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, if the prosecution doesn't have good witnesses that have good memories about what happened, or they don't have photos or videos or whatever the evidence might be, DNA, you just have to apply the law to the facts that you have in front of you. So you don't think about power. You think about making the best decision and that it's correct based on the evidence.
Children
Because
did,
you learn very, very quickly in court, and this always comes as a shock when I say this, but you learn very quickly in court that what actually happened is irrelevant.
Mhm.
What matters is what you can prove happened. You have to be able to prove it. That's the sad reality. So when a woman comes to court and says, my husband didn't declare all his income because he gets a lot of money under the table and his income is actually much higher and my child support should be higher, that's not good enough. You have to prove it. And that's not always easy to do.
what did you learn about kids?
Well, certainly in family court, I learned that children of parents who are in high conflict breakups, disputes, are caught in a conflict of loyalties. Children are innocent in all of this. It's not their fault that their parents broke up. And parents can go on and you can be an ex-wife or an ex-mother, ex-wife or ex-husband. You're never going to be an ex-mother or ex-father. You can go and have a new wife or a new spouse, but your kids aren't going to get new parents. I mean, they might get step parents, but they don't get to replace their biological parents. And so kids in family court really are victims if their parents can't put aside the anger and the hurt and the betrayal and the pain and find a way to make peace. They have to reinvent themselves from ex-partners to co-parents. It's not easy to do when you hate that person who's hurt you so badly.
Well, I just want to let everybody know that one of the things you did throughout your legal career was to institute a law, or help institute a law, initiate it really, whereby if somebody would win money in a lottery, that those funds would be garnished to pay for spousal support that they were remiss on paying. And I want to wish you, as they say in Yiddish, yishakov to you on that, because there were a ton of deadbeat dads before you took the position overseeing that part of the ministry and the government, making sure that people would have to pay. And I have to tell you something. I split up with my mother, my son's mother, and I've been paying for child support ever since, and I pay it every single month, and thank God I've never missed. And hearing that this is what you were part of, making sure that these partners, these men or these women would have to make those payment, or they would lose their license, their money would be garnished. I thank you for that. I really do. You kept me honest. You kept me going. You made sure that I made my payments. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I was the director of child support enforcement for the province of Ontario, and I learned that one of our defaulting payors had won $14 million in the lottery, Lotto 649. And he took a photocopy of the check for $14 million and wrote on the bottom, that bitch isn't getting 1 cent of this money, and sent it to me. So I went to the computer to find his case. He owed $37,000 in arrears. When you've won $14 million,
yeah, don't be a dick.
$37,000 is probably the interest you'd make in 1 week.
Yes.
And he hated his ex-wife that much that he wouldn't pay his arrears. And this is child support. It's not spousal support. It was for his own kids. Well, by the time we tracked it down, the money was in Bermuda and there was no reciprocity between Ontario and Bermuda. So the money was gone. And that's when I went to the Attorney General and said, this can never happen again. And she said, how often does a defaulting support payer win the lottery? Like, is this worth? I said, lots of people, they may not win millions, but they may win a couple thousand or maybe 100,000. I mean, it wouldn't matter. Even one case is too many. And so they did change the law that if you win more than $1,000 in Ontario, they do a search on the computer to see if you owe any arrears. And if you do, they're going to seize it and pay it out in child support. This has been done in the United States for decades.
Yes.
They even do it in casinos in the United States. It's not new. It wasn't my idea. But for some reason, Canada was reluctant to do it. But I was able to convince them that it was absolutely necessary and it was important. And I remember the Lottery Corporation people saying, well, if we take off child support from lottery winnings, what's going to be next? You know, like property taxes, unpaid fines, library dues. And I said, you just don't get it. And then he said, well, people are going to stop buying tickets because the whole idea of lottery winnings, it's tax-free. There's no deductions. I said, did they stop buying tickets in the States? Because they've been doing this for years.
Yes.
And then I said, I'm going after the casinos next. Well, that really scared them. I thought we better give Harvey what he wants because we don't want him going after every casino in the province.
You know, Harvey, you've had this wonderful career. You've written this book, which is tremendous. I suggest everybody pick it up. It's a great book. And now they're making a movie about you, and which is coming out in the fall. What is that like to have a movie made about your life?
I think it's surreal. I can't even believe that it happened. I mean, the book wasn't even out yet and the movie was done.
Yeah.
And that happened because in May of 2025, so the month after I wrote the book, I sent the manuscript to a director who's been on my show 3 times. I'm quite fond of him. I know he likes me. I like his movies. I thought if I sent him the book, he could tell me if he thought maybe there was a movie there. And if so, who could I send it to? Because he makes action movies. Not all of his movies are action movies, but a lot of them are. Well, 2 days later, he phoned me and said, Harvey, I couldn't put it down. Yes, there's a movie in this story, and I'm going to make it, and I'm going to make it fast. Well, I couldn't believe it. He said, I was about to start another film, but I'm putting that on the shelf, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do it fast. This story needs to get told. And so that was in May. In October, we were filming. Somehow he got the financing. He got the movie cast. He got all the stars to be in it. And the movie was finished at the end of November. My book didn't come out until May of 2026. But in November 2025, that movie was filmed. Yes. And I was on the set the whole time. And it was surreal to see my life. First of all, the actors, there's 3 actors that play Harvey. There's the little boy that gets bullied. There's the young Harvey, who the law student and the young lawyer. That's David Mazouz, who was the star of a TV show called Gotham for 5 years. And then David Arquette plays Harvey the judge. And so I was able to talk to them a lot about the performance, about playing me. And I hope I was helpful. When you see the movie, you'll have to decide if they captured me or not, but I'm very happy with the movie.
You know, throughout this book and in the movie, you have been very straightforward about the people in your life, those who got in your way, those who were congratulatory and helpful. One of the pieces I remember reading about is Rabbi Dov Marmer, who was a senior rabbi at Holy Blossom. And you asked him to officiate at a funeral of a young man whose parents had rejected him because he was gay and he died of HIV/AIDS. And here you have your mother out there almost naked, having done what she did to you, both good and bad. And I wondered, do you ever sit back and think, this is going to stand in history. People are going to be reading this for years, watching this movie. Is it okay that I'm using real names, that I'm showing this side of my mom?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm fine with it. What happened with Rabbi Marmer and Holy Blossom Synagogue is something that I want recorded in history.
Mhm.
It's not in the movie. That didn't make it into the movie, but there is a chapter in the book that deals with my efforts as president of the gay Jewish group, Chutzpah, to penetrate the mainstream community at a time when AIDS was killing so many young Jewish men who were estranged from their families, and we needed rabbis to do these funerals. And we took Rabbi Marmer on because he didn't think there were that many gay Jews, so it wasn't such a big deal. And you'll read in the book about how I won that battle. And luckily, Rabbi Bielfeld from Temple Emmanuel in
That's correct.
Toronto did all of our funerals for us. But in terms of using real names, yes, this was history. It's important that history be recorded. And I think that if I am a trailblazer, if I am a pioneer, I think I'm just a survivor. But even if you're just a survivor like me, you should record your story, that it's not lost. It is part of history. You know, that I am part of the evolution of same-sex rights, certainly same-sex marriage. I had a lot to do with that. I am part of the evolution of LGBTQ rights in this country, and I want it to be known.
Rabbi Bielfeld just died, by the way.
Yes, I know. May God rest his soul.
May God rest his soul. Are you deeply concerned about anti-Semitism?
Very much so. I dealt with it in the book. I deal with it as you do and as all of us do, the misunderstandings, the myths about Judaism and about our relationship with Israel. And I'm very, very concerned, especially with some of the directions that are happening all over the world, and especially here in Canada.
Where does your activism or fight against anti-Semitism play itself out?
Well, it's a very personal struggle because I'm not well known in the community, and my platform on YouTube deals with celebrities. I have interviewed, I think, 5 Holocaust authors on my show, but I support the Jewish community and Israel in a private capacity, not in a public capacity.
Does God play a role in your life?
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
How so?
I believe very strongly in God and I mentioned karma before, but I think karma is another word for, I think I said bashert as well.
Sure. Yes, but sure.
I think that those are all words that have to do with God and destiny and guardian angels that watch over you, and that the universe unfolds the way it should, even if you don't understand at the time why something bad happens. Hopefully we will see that the right thing happened, but it may not be as evident as we would like, as soon as we would like. And that has always sustained me, that even in my darkest times, I somehow believed that it would all work out, that somehow I'd make it.
Do you hope the best for the bullies that beat you up?
Well, I wrote in the book about meeting the mother of one of those bullies many years later, who happened to be living at the same retirement home as Mrs. Jarrett, my school teacher. And that did give me empathy. I never realized that I would ever feel any compassion towards those kids that just ruined my childhood. They just terrorized me. I mean, just trying to get into school in the morning and trying to get home after school was a real challenge every single day. But I have developed some compassion for those bullies because I understood that they weren't very well parented themselves.
Yes. You know, Harvey, I've been playing around with AI for many months now, asking it to produce an ode to or poems about my guests. I have here an ode to Harvey Brownstone, which I will read to you. There are lives that pass quietly through history, and there are lives that bend history itself. Harvey Brownstone walked into the courtroom not merely carrying law books, but carrying the trembling weight of every frightened soul told to hide who they were. A young Jewish boy, bullied in silence, mocked for difference, learning early that loneliness can echo louder than thunder. Yet somehow from those shattered places, he built a voice steady enough to calm courtrooms, to heal strangers, and change a nation. At 38, he ascended the Ontario bench, the first openly gay judge in Canada, not wrapped in armor, but clothed in honesty. And honesty in those years was dangerous. He listened to broken families, children trapped in wars without weapons, mothers weeping in hallways, fathers drowning in regret. Behind every ruling stood a man who understood pain not academically, but personally. Then came Tug of War, a judge daring to speak truth aloud. Then Without Prejudice, where robes fell away and the human being emerged, wounded, resilient, and magnificent. And when the retirement arrived, Harvey did not disappear. He reinvented himself again, becoming a keeper of stories, drawing truths from Hollywood legends with gentleness rare in modern conversation. Robert Wagner praised him. Joan Van Ark honored him. George Shakiris called him the interviews unforgettable. And somewhere a song was born, I Am Yours. Now cameras prepared to turn his life into cinema. But perhaps the real movie has always been this: a frightened boy who refused to vanish, a judge whose compassion was large, a pioneer who transformed shame into pride, and above all, a human being who taught countless others that truth is not something to fear, it is something to become. That's that.
Well. I'm not usually a fan of AI.
No, you're
but
not.
I cannot deny that that's really quite touching. Thank you so much, Avram.
Yeah, listen, they say in Hebrew, Magia lecha. In other words, you deserve it. And you do, Harvey. And I know you're very modest in your own way. You and I often have conversations about what you do, what I do. And you're always really, really close to the chest in terms of your accomplishments. But you have led so far a magnificent life. And I thank you on behalf of all the guests that you've touched, the people through the court system, the ones that you worked with, and even the people you went to school with as a young boy. You've made a huge impact on so many of us, including me. And I want to thank you for that, really.
Well, I'm deeply, deeply grateful and humbled by your very kind comments and all the love you've given me. I'm very proud of you and what you've done in your life and on this show. And I thank you for the honor. I got to be on your show twice. That's 2 more times than I ever thought I would. So thank you very much, Avram, for everything you do and for making me feel so welcome.
You're welcome, Harvey, and keep it up. And kudos to your parents for raising such a lovely boy. Lovely boy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching and for listening. As my mother of blessed memory used to say, Sei gesund, go in good health until we meet again. Thank you, Harvey. Thank you.